Thank you for joining the September 2022 VMware TAM customer webinar. This webinar is organized by the VMware TAM organization to provide our customers the opportunity to hear great content and interact directly with great speakers that are delivering it. Our goal is to make sure that you're getting the full benefit from your software. Please make use of the Q&A feature in Zoom to ask any questions. And if your question doesn't get addressed today, be sure to reach out to your TAM and ask them to follow up. Before we get into today's content, there are a couple of items I'd like to cover. Our next TAM customer webinar will be on October 20th. This upcoming session will review vSphere Plus and how this next release brings the benefits of cloud to on-prem. That link will be provided by your TAM and all the registration information. As I mentioned earlier, we want you to benefit from these sessions by interacting with the speaker. So if you have any questions during today's webinar, use the Q&A feature and we'll address them during the webinar. At the end of the session today, you'll be prompted to fill out a survey as well. It's all related to the value you received from this session and any topics suggestions for future sessions. And your completion of the survey is a very valuable gift back to us, and we would greatly appreciate it. Lastly, this webinar is being recorded, and your TAM can make the recording link available to you. After a few months, the recording will be publicly available on the VMware TAM Services YouTube channel. That brings us to today's speakers and the topic. With us on the call, we have Sree Chalasani, Group Product Manager with the Cloud Platform, and Rupesh Shimkhada, Product Line Manager, also Cloud Platform. They'll be going over some of the recent enhancements introduced in vSphere Lifecycle Manager and also some of the latest enhancements with vSphere configuration profiles. Sree, I'll pass it over to you to kick us off.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning, good evening. My name is Sree Chalasani, and I will just start here with a description of what we're doing with lifecycle management of ESX hosts. A little bit of lifecycle management, and then Rupesh will pick up more details on the lifecycle management piece of it, and then I'll come back with the configuration, what we're doing on managing configuration on the hosts. So what we're doing really is we're trying to go to, in terms of managing the host, we know that customers have lots of hundreds, if not thousands of hosts. And what we're trying to do is get to a desired state model of managing the hosts, right? It's a complex problem to manage all these hosts to make sure that they're all conforming to what you as admins, VI admins need in terms of what images on the host, what configuration in the host is on the host, etc. So we are trying to get to this declarative desired state model. And so you specify exactly what image and what configuration you need in the host, and the system will actually figure out if there has been a drift, and if there's a drift, sort of remediate and bring the host back into compliance with that. So that's the desired state model, and we are implementing that with two capabilities. One which is called the vSphere Lifecycle Manager with Images, and this applies that declarative desired state model to the actual software bits, the image that's on the host. And with vSphere 8 coming up soon, we'll also be extending that declarative desired state model to the configuration of the hosts, right? And that's what we call as vSphere configuration profiles. And so just to reiterate, with the launch of vSphere 7.0, we brought in that image piece we call vSphere Lifecycle Manager with Images. And then we've been, over the past couple of years with vSphere 7, we've been evolving that capability. With vSphere 8, we will be announcing the deprecation of the prior lifecycle technology, which is called VAM, or baselines, right? vSphere Lifecycle Manager with baselines. Previously, it was called vSphere Update Manager, or VAM. So we'll be announcing the deprecation. What that means is we're announcing the intent to remove that capability in the future releases. It's not gone from the product in vSphere 8. It'll continue to be there. So if you're using VAM, you can continue to use it. but we are investing all our future development in the in that declarative model that I talked about with images. Okay, and on the configuration side, with the vSphere 8, we are doing a tech preview launch of what we call as vSphere configuration profiles, and the intent is that that will finally and we'll continue to evolve that vSphere configuration profiles over the life of vSphere 8. We go GA very soon here. And the intent is that that will replace the existing host profiles technology. So, right. So the summary here is, vLCM images will replace update VUM, and vSphere configuration profiles will replace host profiles. Okay, so with that, I will hand it off to Rupesh to talk about vLCM images. Do you want to share, Rupesh?
Yes, I'll share. Thank you, Sree. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. My name is Rupesh Shimkhada. I'm a product manager for vSphere Lifecycle Manager. I've been with VMware for 12 years. So I'm talking about today the vSphere Lifecycle Manager, what's new, and I will also provide some a demo of vSphere Lifecycle Manager, and then I will hand it over to Sree back for the config manager content. So basically, as Sree said, so this vSphere Lifecycle Manager single image, the new way of upgrading your ESXi cluster is much more simple. Here is a comparison chart, right? So if you use VUM baseline approach on your left side, there are like multiple steps, and all these steps, like, you need to manually download the ESXi image, manually download vendor add-on, any bibs and components, and then you need to create a separate baseline for each one of them. Then you need to combine them as a baseline group, and then attach the baseline group to the host and stage it and remediate, right? So with the vSphere Lifecycle Manager, we actually will download all the, if your vCenter is connected to the VMware Depot, we'll download all the necessary, vendor add-on, VMware, ESXi image components and all that. And then so you can, from one page, from one dashboard, you can create all these things, a desired state image, and then you can do the pre-check, compatibility check of those images between each other, and also with the compatibility check with the hardware on the same page. And then, like, you don't have to jump back and forth from the same dashboard. You can apply and, remediate. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. And so just to recap of vSphere Lifecycle Manager image, basically, you define your desired state cluster image by adding your ESXi image, vendor add-on drivers, firmwares, and then also if you have an integration with the hardware support manager, you can also add the hardware firmware, and then you can create your image. Once you create your image, that will be your golden image, and like, you want to be compliant with that all the time, right? So that's the concept here. And then, you want to be, all the hosts, all the nodes in the cluster should be always compliant to that defined image that you defined. So what you will do is, once the image is defined, we will run the pre-check and we'll remediate all the hosts in the cluster to that image, and then, you will be compliant. So once you are compliant to that, image, then also we'll do a check. If there is any drift, we'll notify that on the screen. So, you will have a chance to remediate, you can see what are the drift, and then you can remediate from the same screen. And like I said, there is a vendor add-on component, like a hardware support manager.
Could I interrupt you for 1 minute?
Sure,
I'm sorry.
sure.
So we're seeing several of our customers are emailing in that they're having a Zoom error, basically an Nginx error from Zoom. And so we're aware of the problem. I don't think there's anything we can do that I'm aware of. This is getting recorded. And so, some people are posting it in Q&A and things. I appreciate the heads up, but just want to let everybody know we are aware of it, and the session is getting recorded. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. So anyway, so what I was talking here is, so if you have a, Dell or HPE hardware support manager like OMI, VV, or, for Lenovo Clarity and things like that, right? So you can integrate that with vCenter and vSphere Lifecycle Manager. And if you have that integration done, basically what we'll do is, like we'll also download the vendor's, firmware from hardware support manager like OMI, VB, and then or OpenView, right, or OneView, and then we'll implement that firmware in the image itself. So when we remediate that image, there will be one-time reboot for everything that you need, right? So currently we support the HSM are available from Dell, HPE, Lenovo, Fujitsu, Hitachi, and Cisco. And also these, these HSM integration is provided by the partners and these vendors, right? So, and they will test and certify those, what capabilities they have. And we also list them in our hardware support manager VMware compatibility list. Okay, so key benefits of managing ESXi lifecycle. Again, to recap, right? So no need for OEM specific ISO. You don't have to wait for OEM to provide that ISO image. You can build your image by adding all these components. So like sometime like VMware releases it on its own cycle, and then like OEM and vendor they release on their ISOs on their own cycle right after testing and all that. So sometimes it's not together, or there is a longer window for them to release. But then if you can get if the add-ons and things like that are same, you don't have to wait. You can apply the image. You can build your own image with a desired state image and then apply that, right? And then firmware updates, like I said, it can be done together, so it will reduce overall maintenance window for you. Then we are also doing a hardware compatibility checks. Right now, we are doing hardware compatibility checks for the vSAN nodes, and we are also planning and adding more hardware compatibility check for the regular host in the future. And it's always like desired state compliance, right? So once you have this desired state model, you can you will detect the drift, so your hosts are always in compliance and all that. So like you have better peace of mind. So with that, let me switch to demo. Here, what I want to show is basically, this is my live ESXi host environment, but this is a virtual environment. So I have a 70U2 vCenter, and I have one cluster. And this cluster is currently being, if you go to update, right? So there is UC baseline. So it's not enabled, image is not enabled yet. If you look at the host, you only see it's been managed by baseline. So to convert, so you may have existing, you have existing clusters and you want to upgrade and convert it to the single image. And how do you do that, right? So to do that, you can either go to here and then set up an image. You select the image, or if you are in a baseline, by default, there is a manage with a single image button here. It takes you to the same place. Then, it will kick off a workflow to converting and upgrading this host to the single image desired state image, right? So on the first step, you will see, so you're going to do everything from this screen basically, right? So let me expand this a little more so it's bigger. Okay, so you're going to be doing everything from this same screen. First thing you're going to do is you're going to select which firmware will be your ESXi version will be your desired state image. So let's say if it's a 70U3 you want to upgrade to, then you can add a vendor add-on. And if you have a Dell, you can select the Dell 70U3. Once you select that vendor add-on, basically you can also see like what are the components are part of that add-on, right? So like the HBA firmwares and NIC cards and drivers for various things are included on that add-on, right? And then you select that, and you can the next thing is this firmware and driver add-on. Firmware and driver add-on is that HSM integration I talked about earlier. If you have that HSM integration, this is optional, as it says here. If you have that, you can do that, and you can integrate here. If you don't have, or if you want to continue your the way you are doing right now, even though you have those HSM or OMIVB and things like that, and you want to actually upgrade your hardware, on a different schedule, firmware upgrades, you can do that as well, right? So this is optional, but if you want to, utilize this vSphere Lifecycle Manager single image, you can do that. You can select here. Unfortunately, I don't have a connection to this is a virtual environment. So, you will be able to see from the drop down what kind of a hardware support manager it is. Is it from Dell or HP or one of those vendors? And then once you select that, then it will also show you what version of add-ons are certified and posted here. So once you do that, I'll exit out of here. Then also if you want to add any other component, any other waves and things like that, you can add components over here. There are a bunch of components already downloaded from VMware Depot that partner certified and uploaded to the VMware Depot are available over here, right? So then once you do that, you can save it and you can validate and save it basically. So it will also check if there is a compatibility between this firmware over here or not with that validation at this step 1. So step 1 is a validation between these the various firmware compatibility, and then on the step 2 we'll go and do the check with hardware compatibility. So once you do the step 1, then the next thing is on a step 2, like I said, we are going to check with the hardware compatibility, and once that is done, then you can finish your image setup. Any questions? Let me see here. Defining error cluster is nice, maintaining state.
Yeah, so I wanted to address that. So the only requirement is that the image that you're composing here be applicable for the entire hosts in the cluster, right? So lifecycle operations with this are being performed at a cluster level. So as long as the vendor add-on that you are including, so say suppose you have a cluster of HP hosts within the cluster, right? So then as long as the add-on from HP is applicable to all the hosts within that cluster, it should be, there's no problem, right? Even if there's small differences between the hosts, it should not be a problem. So that was the first question. Then there was also a question on what tool is used for HP. It is basically OneView. So you need that HSM, which is called Hardware Support Manager, to provide. So first of all, the update of the firmware at the same time as you update the high level stack, ESX and driver beds, is optional, right? If you want to continue to use your existing tools to manage firmware, that is fine. So the OneView tool is, the HP tool, HSM is called OneView. Just since there was a question. So there was another question of whether the vendor's plugin to vCenter has all the same capabilities. It may not. And
yeah, it depends on.
Sorry, one sec. If you just Google VCG HSM, VCG space HSM, you will see a link to the HSM page, and you can just go to the page and you will see some clarity on what each of the HSMs support. So VCG, which is vSphere Compatibility Guide, HSM. If you just Google that, you will see a link to that page. Go ahead, Rupesh.
Yeah, that's that's what I was saying. And then also the vendors, they may use like older version API from our integration. So if they haven't used the latest version of API, then they may not be supporting some of the latest feature. With the vSphere 8, what we are going to do is we're going to provide a list of functionality that we have through the HSM integration will be listed there. And when you select the vendor name, it will show you like which features are supported by which vendor. So just to make that clear and transparent with our customers.
Then there was a question about auto deploy. So there are two modes of operation of your host, right? Of how you lifecycle your host. Either you get the image from a network, so network book, like stateless mode of operation, and that is with auto deploy, and that will continue to use auto deploy. But a lot of our solutions like NSX, vSAN, etc., require state on the host, and so you're in the stateful mode of operation. And this is where we have vSphere Update Manager right now, or the baselines technology, and that we're trying to move to images, right? So stateless will continue to use auto deploy. Stateful is where vLCM with images is coming in, and at some point we might make it converge. We might have a stateless mode support within vLCM images as well, but auto deploy will continue to remain right now. And if you're using it, that's fine. If you're a customer, can we use vSphere, or do we need to use SDDC Manager for you? So if you're a VCF customer, you will continue to use upgrades through SDDC Manager. You're not basically within the SDDC Manager, you will find a mechanism of creating workload domains using vLCM. So that's how you do it. You do it through SDDC Manager. During creation of the workload domains, during creation of the clusters, you will specify that this cluster is lifecycle managed through vLCM images. How can I revert back to baseline updates? So please reach out to us why you would want to be doing this. There should be no reason to revert back to baselines.
Yeah.
There is, please reach out to us. I want to make sure that we address all your issues. vLCM is our technology going forward. As I said, we announced a deprecation of VUM with 8.0. So if there is a problem which is causing you to want to revert, we want to know what that is and address that.
Maybe Sree, we want to pause here and we're going to come back to the Q&A. I wanted to show the remaining of this demo, and then so there is like Sree said, there is no point of reverting back. You can see there are like multiple compliance check. Let's come back to the Q&A in a while. Okay, let me go to. So yeah, so like so the image creation, so you need to finish, so that was pretty quick, but then we jump into Q&A. So the image setup will be finished. So once you are done with that, right? So basically what happens is you have that image as a desired state image, and you can see down here, like when you select the host, your current image is 7.0U1, it hasn't been updated yet, so. And then, your desired state image is 7.0U3Z. So, now if you want to upgrade, you have multiple ways you can do that. You can remediate all. If you do that, it will take one host at a time. And then automatically, vMotion the VMs and put the host into maintenance mode. And then, upgrade that host. Once it's done, it puts the VMs back into that host and then move on to the next one, right? So if you do remediate all, if you don't want to do that, you can also do like one by one. And you can remediate each host at one at a time, right? So now, until now, you haven't upgraded yet, right? Basically, remediation is upgrade. So basically, before this, we have already done so many compliance check. If you fail compliance, you will not be proceeding, right? So this remediate all, if there is an issue, it will not highlight. Okay, that's one thing. So there is no need for. We don't see there is a need for a unless there is some other issues that happens, but then that can be fixed offline, like if you have a problem with one host, maybe a driver or something, so like that can be fixed, and then you can move on to the next one, right? So yeah, once we do that, and let me just click this remediate all, start remediation. So let me show you quickly here. This host, yeah, this host is 7.0U1. This host is 7.0U1. If there is any VMs, it will move it will pick one of the host, and DRS will pick one of the host, and then move the VMs to the other host, and then put the host in a maintenance mode and take care of it. Right. So it's very pretty simple and straightforward here. Maybe we can go back and continue on Q&A at this point, and you can see like how it will go through multiple hosts here.
Yeah, let's just finish your presentation.
Okay. All right. Okay, so that's one. So basically now it's being remediated, right? So I will let it happen in the background. I want to show also a few other important stuff, maybe that will be very useful for you. So if you go to home section, there is a lifecycle manager, and there are certain settings that I wanted to go over, right? So basically there is a setting tab, and on the settings tab, you can actually, I want to show a few things here. So path setup is, like these are the depot that, if your vCenter is connected to the, VMware or internet, we automatically have these populated and, configured by default. So if you want to change, like you may have an environment that is in a nested environment. If that's the case, you can use, our service, upgrade manager download service, UMDS. If you download that and, put into your, DMZ environment, and then, you just provide the URL to the UMDS, and then, UMDS will fetch the binaries, same binaries from VMware, and then, then you will have an internal, basically network that will connect your vCenter to the UMDS, right? So that's, that option is available there. That's what I want to show there. And then a few other settings on the image side. So we have several settings. This is the vCenter that you are looking at right now. And, it has like multiple settings for the cluster remediation settings. This is a vCenter wide setting. I will also show you where the cluster level setting is available for same settings available. Right. So this is a vCenter wide. You can enable quick boot. You can select different kind of VM power states, depending on what kind of a VM and workload it's running, right? And then you can also have a migrate power off and suspend VM to other host, and how many retry you want to do, right? So for those retry of migrating VM, and then disable HA admission if you want to do that. If you have a disable DPM on the cluster if you want that, right? So, and prevent remediation in hardware compatibility issue if you are found. So there are a bunch of settings here, and on with vSphere 8, we'll have one more setting called parallel remediation. And you can define like maximum how many number of hosts you would like to be remediated in parallel. So those are the settings. One other thing I wanted to actually show is you have so these are the automatically downloaded ESXi versions. So you can use based on your environment, and these are the vendor add-on, and these are the component. And these are the updates if vSphere VMware pushes certain updates at certain times. So critical updates or moderate update you can see, and you can look at the severity for which versions and all that. So there is another thing you can do is if you have a vendor provided some kind of add-on that's not here, what you can do is you can import that update. When you click import update, it will allow you to update using the zip file or the URL. So basically, if vendor add-ons are published or something new from the vendor that you need to add in your image, they are actually published into the VMware depot, and you can download from that depot, and then you can download as a zip file, and then you can upload it over here. And with that, let me go back to the previous screen. So here, let me see this host is 70U1, 70U1, 70U. Yeah, so this host is already upgraded to 70U3. but then these other two hosts are still in a progress. Yeah, so looks like this host just went to the maintenance mode, and this host has one VCLS VM, and then yeah, the VM from here was moved to the host that was upgraded. So yep, that's the demo I have. We can now go back to the presentation, or we can take on Q&A. Sree, what do you want to do?
Yeah, let's please finish the presentation. I think we'll move to config soon.
Okay, so then yeah, like I said, like Sree said, we released our vSphere Lifecycle Manager on in 2019. So we've been updating and adding a lot of additional capabilities, and some of the VMware capabilities and all that, and some of the new additional capabilities. We have a really good integration with the NSX. If you have an NSX environment, upgrading NSXT with the vSphere Lifecycle Manager is pretty simple. Same thing with the vSAN, if you have a vSAN environment, we are aware of the vSAN availability zone, and we upgrade one at a time, and like aware of all the things which are a witness node and which availability zone you have, what are the availability zone you have, right? So there are multiple things we enhanced last couple of years, and these are the things we will be releasing with vSphere 8 additional features and support. Right, I'll go through on these one by one.
Rupesh, I don't know if you're not sharing your screen, if you're trying to share something.
Oh, thanks, Sree. Okay. Thanks for reminding that. Okay, here. Yeah, so I was talking like all these features have been previously released in last 2 years, since the inception of the 7.0 vSphere and vSphere Lifecycle Manager. So supporting the vSAN, supporting NSX, we added a bunch of new capabilities on there, and then I will be talking about vSphere 8, the new features like SmartNIC support, staging support, parallel remediation support, standalone host support, and the VCG listing for the feature that will be supported by the vendors. And then also we will have a config manager that has a tech preview at the end. So that first, the feature that we talk about is, the DPU support, right? So SmartNIC support. So vSphere Lifecycle Manager, you can, if you have a DPU in your host, it will be like when you are installing, if it's a brand new host and it comes with a DPU, then when you're installing the, ESXi on this host, you'll have like you'll have a capability to install ESXi on a host as well as on a DPU. The DPU will be, presented as another device to be installed. When you do that interactive installation of the ESXi, right? So, and then when we are upgrading the in the future, like when we are upgrading or you are upgrading any DPU based ESXi host, we'll upgrade both ESXi host and the DPU at the same same time. So like it will be always in a locked in mode. It will match the versions on the DPU as well as on a ESXi host. So next feature that we'll be releasing with vSphere 8 is staging of the images. Staging of the images will the goal here is we wanted to reduce your overall maintenance window. So you can stage the firmware and ESXi image, desired state image prior to your maintenance window. So you plan, you prep, and you stage the image, and then when your maintenance window is kick off, then you actually just remediate at that point in time, right? So, and if you do that, you can definitely significantly reduce your maintenance window, and also you will be removing some of the risk that might be based on the downloading the images at the last minute. If you stage, you're not going to have those issues. So if let's say if a vendor, so we can stage, like I said, our entire desired state image, including the HSM vendor firmware image. But some vendor may be lagging behind a little bit. They may not be supporting the staging functionality from our vSphere 8 release yet. So if that's the case, then we'll show you the staging is not supported by the HSM plugin. Basically, there will be a then in this kind of scenario, then what you need to do is you need to upgrade your hardware firmware, similarly the way you are doing right now with the OneView and OMIVV. So another thing is parallel remediation. So parallel remediation functionality is introduced with vSphere 8. So you can, if you have a capacity in your cluster, let's say, you have 10 node clusters and you have a 33% capacity left, and if you can put 2 hosts into maintenance mode at a time, you'll be reducing your overall maintenance window by 50%, right? So, so this feature is available. What you need to do is you definitely need to have enough capacity in your cluster for your workload VMs. If you can put the 2 hosts in the maintenance mode, you can select the 2 hosts which you want to put into the maintenance mode, and then it will upgrade those 2 hosts in parallel within a cluster. And then also this step is not automated. It's not like you put 2 host in a maintenance mode and then vLCM will automatically pick another 2 hosts. It's not like that. You have to put 2 hosts in a maintenance mode. Once that is done, then you need to again manually put another 2 hosts into maintenance mode. But overall, it can reduce time, your maintenance window if you have enough capacity in the cluster. So there is a setting that I was talking about. You will see in a vSphere 8 vCenter. And yeah, so and then all these, if you put 2 hosts or 3 hosts, in a maintenance, for parallel remediation, all those hosts will be kicked off and finished around the same time. Also, with vSphere 8, we'll be supporting standalone host with a single image. So you may have some hosts outside of the cluster, but then that are being managed by baseline right now, right? So we wanted to support that. So standalone hosts that are outside of the cluster will be also supported by desired state image. So you can apply the image over there on those hosts. On vSphere 8.0 GA time, we will only support via API, and following release 8.0E1, we'll be supporting a UI for this standalone host support. So what we are looking at is, so basically, our goal here is to minimize the downtime for our customers and make the upgrade much more faster. So with functionalities like quick boot, image staging, parallel upgrades, and things like that, you can upgrade your clusters faster than ever. Again, so one thing we would like to call is, so we are definitely transitioning to the vLCM single image desired state image concept and model. So you will be seeing some of these banners in upcoming vSphere 8 release, right? So that means like will be deprecate means like vSphere 8 we are announcing the deprecation, and in most probably vSphere 9 or vSphere.next, that will completely deprecate it.
Okay, thanks, Rupesh. Can switch it back to me. Okay. All right. So just wanted to summarize, right? The goodness about vLCM images is you have this desired state concept, so you absolutely know what's in your host. Also, we ensure that the image that you compose, we are doing some of the manual VCG checks that you do, right? Like for vSAN, HCL checks, etc., that you do manually. We are automating all of that. So this when you compose a desired state image, it's automatically checked for you. So that's one good thing. The third thing is you can obviously update your firmware as well as at the same time as you're upgrading the ESX images. So one cycle or one host maintenance cycle can be used for both. And then you don't, and then the last piece is that the OEM bits have their own swim lane. The OEMs and VMware have their own swim lane. So the bits that you get from VMware are the base ESX image, and then you simply add on the OEM deliverables, right? OEM drivers, firmware, etc. And so that way you don't have to wait for the consolidated image from the OEM. If, say, for example, if there's a security vulnerability and you need to patch right away, you can just use the VMware provided ESX base image along with the existing OEM add-on compose an image and remediate. So these are all the benefits of vLCM images. So moving on, I wanted to talk about how we are applying the same construct for configuration as well. And we'll get to that. So configuration management, so we are applying the same desired state concept for configuration management as well. So we construct a single configuration file, you construct a single JSON that has the host configuration, and then you will apply it across all the hosts in your cluster, and then you can check for compliance to that configuration. If there's any drift, you can remediate it back to the desired state. So it's the same concept as we saw before previously. So here's a little demo, right? So so you can see under desired state, there is now a configuration tab. So here we're going through a process of going through this demo process of enabling vSphere configuration profiles on this. So effectively we pick, let me pause here. So we're picking a reference host from which to extract the configuration and apply it across the entire cluster. So here we've picked this host. We've sort of extracted the configuration. Once you've imported that configuration, then you can, you will have a JSON document, and you can validate that that configuration that you've extracted from that host is applicable across all the hosts in the cluster, right? We want to make sure that that's an applicable thing. So we have to validate that configuration across all hosts. Once that is done, you can basically run pre-checks and then remediate, right? So now all the hosts, after you've completed this process, all the hosts will have that same configuration that you've so you've finished the pre-check now you're applying. So now it will have the same configuration as the reference host that you've selected. Okay, so then you can actually go in and view the configuration. So you have all on the left side here, you have a whole bunch of configurations that you can view. And then if you look at compliance, and you can run compliance scans at any point of time. And if once you run compliance, it'll tell you if there's been a drift. So for example, in this case, I have a single host and it's telling me it's compliant with the reference host. Now let's assume I add a host, and let's go through that process. And let's assume those hosts are not compliant, right? Don't have that reference configuration that you want. So once you've added the hosts, the compliance scan is run, and it will show you that obviously there is a drift, right? So in this case, some configuration is supposed to be cluster configuration value is supposed to be configured, but it is not in this case. So then you can click remediate, and it will run pre-checks and remediate the cluster, right? And make sure everything is compliant with that desired configuration. So yeah, now all the hosts are compliant with the desired config. And you can also look at the host level details here. I'll skip ahead here. Okay. So at some point, you'll have a green check box across all the 3 hosts, and everything is now and so you can at any point check the status, right? Whether it's, whether this remediation was successful or not, we keep logs on that. So that was a demo of config profiles. I want to say that this is vSphere configuration profiles is being launched in tech preview in 8.0. And the reason it's being launched in tech preview is because we don't have support for VDS. So if you use distributed switch, you cannot be using configuration profiles in 8.0. But very soon here, we will be resolving that sort of interoperability problem. And we'll be going GA, and you'll be able to use it even if you use VDS. So right now in the tech preview phase, it is limited to the use of customers who use standard switches. And then the additional requirement right now is that the cluster itself, the image of the cluster should be managed by vLCM images. So what Rupesh talked about with regard to vLCM images, that should be what you use in order to use configuration, in order to use vSphere configuration profiles. So just going over this document, what the configuration looks like, how it compares to host profiles. The key thing is host profiles requires you to specify everything. It becomes a little bit unwieldy because it requires you to specify every single configuration, whether it's an actual configuration or not on the host. But here you only need to specify the deltas, right? The delta from the default configuration. So that's all the document needs to have. And there's really three sections. One is like the profile that you want to specify for the cluster. And this is your cluster profile. And if you want any specific host to have a deviation from that cluster profile, you can specify that. And the host override section is basically, host overrides is a section that overrides any specific configuration that you want to deviate from the cluster profile. And host specific is if there's any configuration that requires you to have like host specific information, example, the names, host names is obviously specific to that host, right? That will be listed here. So as I said before, it's a delta from the default configuration. So this document is much more wieldy and much more manageable. You can export this JSON document and you can use it across clusters as well, just like you can in images. So yeah, as I said previously, the requirements prereqs for this is that the cluster needs to be managed with vLCM images. You cannot have distributed switches. You will see if you have VDS in your environment, when you try to enable configuration profiles, you'll see this message. And in the next release, we will be coexisting with that. So that should not be a problem. So that brings me to the end of my presentation on config profiles. We can go through any of the questions that you have, and we will answer them live. What's the difference between desired state and the host profiles? Yeah, I mentioned that previously, right? The host profiles, the way host profiles is structured is you need to have everything about the host, whether it's a actual configuration that you manage or not, it has to be described in the document, and that makes that host profile document very unwieldy. So by the way, you can also transition from host profiles to vSphere configuration profiles. We'll be publishing blogs on how to do all of this, so please look out for that. Yes, this is coming in vSphere 8 in the tech preview mode, and the upcoming release, we will go GA with this. So maybe we can answer some of those questions live, or how do you want to do this, Chris? Or do we?
Yeah, so I just figured we could go through the list here, just repeat the question and then go through the list and answer the ones that you think are applicable to that, and then we'll start sorting from there. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll let you choose the questions, all that'd probably be better.
Can you remediate outside of a cluster like a host and a folder? Yeah. So currently what you have with vSphere 7x so far is that it's the vLCM is a cluster concept, but coming up with vSphere 8, we are introducing standalone host support as well. That is, hosts that are outside of the cluster, outside of the cluster config as well, can be remediated with vLCM. With vSphere 8, we'll have support for that only in API mode, but 8.0U1, we will have support for that in the UI as well. So standalone hosts can also be remediated with vLCM. Is there API for this tool, and how mature is it feature-wise? This enables integration into automatic automation platforms. I'm assuming that you're referring to config in this case. By the way, there is a vSphere SDK that's published. All the APIs should be available there. I put a link to that in one of the answers here. But all the APIs are published there. So both vLCM images and vSphere configuration profiles will have APIs. So yeah.
Yeah, and also for the vLCM, everything is API first development. So you'll have API for everything that's available in UI.
Can we use one image for all clusters? So yeah, right now the image that you construct, the desired state image that you construct is within the cluster. But once you've constructed a good desired state, you can actually export that image and it's a JSON file, and you can export that image and use it across clusters. So say, suppose you have 60 clusters and you've constructed a desired state for one cluster, you can export the JSON file and import it into the other 60 clusters and use that same model, right? Yes, so V7, so yes, configuration profiles is coming only in vSphere 8. So yes, you will need both ESX and vCenter to be in 8. Any plan on making vLCM support stateless hosts and get rid of auto deploy? Yeah, like I said previously, right for now, stateless is still continued, is going to still continue to use auto deploy, but it's in our roadmap to converge stateful and stateless hosts to use vLCM technology. But for now, it will continue to use auto deploy. You said currently it's not supported if you have DVS, and it will only support for standards you're talking about only for ESXi. Yeah, so if you have VDS at all in your environment, then you cannot use vSphere configuration profiles, right? So because they will override each other and it'll cause a mess. So we've actively blocked. So if you try to enable vSphere configuration profiles, it will check if you have VDS enabled, and if so, it will not allow you to enable vSphere configuration profiles. So you should not have any VDS in your environment. By the way, we are going to have multiple blogs published on this configuration profiles, also on this limitation with VDS. And as I said, we'll be removing that limitation very soon here with 8.0U1, right? So with 8.0U1, we'll go GA, we'll support coexistence with VDS, right? So any other questions you want to answer here, Rupesh?
Yeah, I think, let me see here, I scroll from up. Do you have any compatibility metrics page where we can check what components are mandatory and which one can be added? So basically, so the VMware compatibility guide shows you, the compatibility between the hardwares, right? So, but then the software compatibility, so we don't publish something like that, but then, what we do is, the vendor add-ons are provided by vendor. So if you buy certain hardware like Dell, HP, Lenovo, whatever that is, right? So you normally upgrade, you have a bundle for all the firmware from them, and all the drivers are also from them, right? So that the same thing is certified by them, and then they publish that with in our VMware depot after their certification that it works with our release of the vSphere ESXi, right? So once that certification is done, then only it's uploaded to our depot. So that means it should work, right? So, and then that's why when you select the vendor add-on, it will have all the components that you need for your hardware, basically.
So just wanted to share a couple of things here. So in the process for using image or config is basically, you run a compliance scan, you check the drift from the desired state, and then you click remediate. So there's two phases, right? You construct your image or configuration, you construct your desired state. Second phase, you check compliance, or you check drift of your existing host from what you've constructed, and then the third is remediate, right? So if you, I think there was a question here, but if you've if you've constructed that desired state and you've run the compliance and there is a drift, and you've not clicked remediate, your hosts are still in that old image or old configuration, right? So or remediate is the piece that actually applies that new constructed desired state to the host. And then just quickly on I wanted to share quickly on what the let me just share. So this is the VCG compatibility guide. So I just did a search of VCG HSM and I come to this page, and this is where you see all the HSMs listed for the various OEMs. And then regarding SDK, somebody was asking on SDK. So all the SDKs are the SDK is listed here, and all the APIs will be listed in this link. And 8.0, it's coming up to in Q4 calendar year this year. Supposed to be in September sometime. I think that sort of brings us to the top of the hour.
Now we have another 30 minutes if we want. I'm gonna post. There was a how do we do HSM integration. So I'm gonna post a couple of links from the videos. That you can find online. I just sent one for the Dell, I believe. And if there are any other questions, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, so I think that's good. Did you say that you're going to post some links?
Yeah, okay.
We can actually follow up with that if you want. If you want to give them to us, because we couldn't get to all the questions.
I think I did posted the link, but it went somewhere.
In chat, maybe disabled
Okay,
here. We just typically use the Q&A, so maybe we can take those. We definitely recommend everyone on this call to follow up with their TAM with any questions that weren't answered, and also for those links. Anything you didn't think of. Thank you for that. We'll be sure to distribute that. So Sree, Rupesh, this was really great content today, and we really appreciate you presenting here on the TAM webinar for sure. So thank you.
Thank you, and please do this transition as soon as possible. And if there are roadblocks or concerns, please feel free to reach out through your TAM to us. We want to make sure this transition to vLCM images as smooth as possible for you. And
like Sree said, definitely reach out to us if you bump into something, or if you have some questions via TAM and your account team. So we'll be happy to connect with you. Thank you.
Yep, for sure. Thanks for that. So really quickly, to everyone who is eventually able to join us here, there apparently was a larger outage with our webinar provider, if you will. But regardless, we apologize for the inconvenience. But as we mentioned at the beginning, this was recorded, and your TAM can make that available to you. So anything that you missed, you'll be able to get a link from your TAM. Please join us next month when we'll be looking at vSphere Plus. We look forward to seeing you for that on October 20th. And this concludes the webinar. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time.